I was watching a show where Maximilian was a guest, and he was asked a question that I would like to throw at you scientists. What would you do for the next Capcom fighting game? I loved his ideas. He basically said, in a perfect world, he would make a type of Capcom All-Stars, starting with a smaller entry point that is less than $60 to get people in and keep expanding over time as Killer Instinct did. In a realistic world, the best idea would be to go for an MVC 4, improving on what MVC 3 did now that they can bring back the X-Men. But what they will probably end up doing is Street Fighter 6. So his wish would be for them to either go back to an alpha-style 2D or go full-on realistic like MK, maybe with the RE engine, arguing that Street Fighter 5 looks too much like 4, and it's a style that might be done.
I really like that first suggestion, especially the point about getting in. Like, if you make like a $15-$20 fighting game that has like 6 to 8 characters,
Well-known
and it's like,
Capcom characters.
yeah, and it's like good, like it has to be good. But
Yes.
if all those things are true, that's like an amazing way to get people in who are like, oh, I liked the Street Fighter.
It's the thing that like is surprising that we haven't seen more of it. And when it has happened, it's usually been kind of on the fringes. Like Killer Instinct's probably like the one. I was gonna say major franchise, but maybe Killer Instinct. Are we calling that a major franchise? Anyway,
Because that thing
Killer
like a
Instinct is a
B-tier.
free to play thing, made a lot of sense,
Yeah.
and was
was
really
it free
well
to play
done.
off the bat? Like right out of the gate?
Yes.
Wow. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. That definitive edition of that, I think, is coming to Game Pass. Pretty soon here, finally. Yeah, I think that the Capcom versus Capcom,
I would love to see that.
like the Tekken but a fighting game,
yeah,
something like that.
Put 4 Street Fighter characters.
I was just about to say, who's your 8? Yeah,
I mean,
four Street Fighter makes sense to me.
We've seen, Capcom Fighting Evolution or Fighting Jam.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that wasn't very
Ryu,
well.
Chun-Li,
Honda?
Guile.
Sure.
Zangief. You need a grappler in there.
Yeah.
But you also need like a bad guy. You need like Sagat
villain?
or Bison or Akuma.
Sagat plays so much like Ryu, though.
Yeah.
I think your bad guy is an all new character,
Okay.
and that gives you some wiggle room there in terms of like who you make on the playable roster.
Oh no, I'm gonna say Balrog. That's my 4th.
Really?
Yeah. I think you need one of the like original 5 Shadaloo bad guys. Just because
That'd be
like
a bold
those are,
choice. I would support. I would think that would be cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think
it's
of like I remember we're trying in this scenario. We're building this game in a way to be good for people who aren't necessarily super into the fighting scene. People whose last fighting the game, like Street Fighter, maybe 2 or 4.
Yeah.
and then working backwards from there.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if you're looking at the character selection that way, I was thinking about it more in terms of
Diversity.
character archetypes of like, yes, Guile's a charge character, Chun-Li is a mash character. I mean, well, you mash kick to make the thing happen. I'm not saying,
I know what you mean.
Ryu is fucking, he's the Ryu of that game.
Yeah.
And then I would think a grappler.
Yeah.
But then if we're talking 8 total.
Yeah, you could
Here's
make
your grappler,
you could-
Mike Hagar.
Yeah, you could
Okay,
make up
yeah,
the archetypes
exactly,
on
yeah.
the other 4. So yeah, who the Mega Man?
Yeah, you have to throw Mega Man in there.
Mega Man,
Dante?
Mac Hygar, just because people have been wanting him in like a proper Street Fighter game forever.
And I would love
was he
to
never in
see-
Alpha 3 or any of the
No,
Alpha?
he was in that.
He was in Final Fight Revenge, and he
Yeah.
was in...
What was the one that like top down one, or the one that like had
That's Final
Yeah,
Final
okay.
Fight.
Who are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Hagar.
Oh, he's in
He's
NBC
in-
2.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
or 3.
Yeah.
Three.
3. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah, I thought I had seen him somewhere.
Yeah.
Still, he is probably of Final Fight. He's the guy.
No,
the
guy is
Monster
the guy.
Hunter.
That's the guy.
What's that?
The Monster Hunter.
You think?
Palicos
Maybe
from
a
Monster
Pal-
Hunter.
big enough to be a fighting game character.
That
They've
game
had
sold like
Sirbot and
super well.
Five Palicos in a trench coat.
Capcom's highest selling video game ever.
there would be some Monster Hunter stuff in there.
About a
for sure.
Rathalos.
That could playable Rathalos. Yeah.
Too big.
That could be a super combo. Just fucking make a rap.
Okay, give me a couple deep pulls. Who you want in this game?
I want the car from Speed Rumbler. The dude from Black Tiger.
Gene from God Hand.
Yeah.
That yellow monster with the red eye from the first Mega Man.
Like he's called like Satan Man
from
or
Wily's
something.
Castle,
Oh, wow.
the big
Yeah.
yellow monster
Blob.
thing.
I think the thing I would
Yellow
want,
Devil.
I would
That's his
want, like most of all, and this maybe speaks to my feelings on the Versus games, or at least the Marvel versus Capcom games, is I would want all new takes on not like characters who are not fighting game characters but have appeared in fighting games. I want fresh takes on those.
Totally.
I don't want Mega Man to play like he has played
2, 3.
in. Yeah, no, I want an all new take on Mega Man.
I agree.
I want an all new take on Dante. Like these characters that have appeared in the Versus games. Like wipe the fucking slate clean.
Yeah.
And start fresh with a new system that is a little. Because I also think that, like, if you were talking about this in terms of like trying to bring new people in, this is not some juggle combo Versus game.
No.
This is more grounded like a traditional Street Fighter. And so I think you would want to have fresh takes on a lot of that stuff. You probably would come to some of the same conclusions over again, but at least like starting fresh and going like, okay, we're putting this move in because it's a move that Mega Man does, not because it was in this previous game, and give it different properties or make it make sense for that system.
Interesting.
If we're talking something along the lines of a Street Fighter 6, the biggest thing that you need is a system, because ever since 3, Third Strike had the parries, 4 had the focus attacks, 5 has V skill, V triggers.
Yeah.
They kind of like purport these as like the central, like start here and then build the characters out from those things.
Right.
So you would need to figure out what that big new thing is going to be.
What if you just made Alpha 4 and just like built on the Alpha systems, which some of the V counter is kind of just an Alpha counter, right?
Right,
But
right.
I think that is definitely true for the hardcore Street Fighter audience, but I didn't realize I agreed with him until he said this. I feel like one of the things working against 5 so much is that it does at a glance look a lot like 4. Art style wise.
Yeah.
Like obviously if you play them a lot, you can easily tell the difference. But like
Right.
in my mind
Like
thinking
the jump
back
from 3 to 4 was so
Yeah.
huge.
And also
the time was
Yeah.
it was a long time.
and also, but like 4 had that distinctive look with the ink stuff and everything. And in my mind, 5 just is like, in my memory, it's like more of that. There's nothing to really set it apart.
I want it to go back to, and I want them to draw influence from games like, Guilty Gear, that keep that 2D looking animation, but, still in like a 3D, engine. They can still have that effect and still make it look 2D. I need them to go back to that. I haven't been a huge fan of the way that, the models have looked, since 4.
4 made a lot of sense at the time.
Yeah, it totally did.
And it hasn't aged super well. Whatever. But like, yeah, I guess that's a decent point, that 5 is just kind of, here's more polygonal characters. Like, it's maybe stylistically a little different, but it's polygonal representation of these big feet.
Yeah, same basic vibe
as
4.
Yeah.
Something to set it apart.
But also trying to harken back to, like, when you look at the Street Fighter 2 models, and what if they were polygonal and exaggerated just so,
Right.
Like, you see how they get there.
It made sense. I like the CBA brush style. That was a nice flourish. Or whatever,
and I don't think 5 looks bad.
No, in motion, I think it looks great.
It's just not that distinctive, I don't think.
Sure. Yeah. It's the thing about 3, man. As much as that was, someone asked me separately, like, hey, did you guys used to cover arcade games back in the day? And I started thinking about it, and it was like, it was such a limited. But I do remember, like, we heard about an arcade that had Street Fighter 3 and went and go seek it out and play it, having never seen it in motion before. And that first,
wow,
that's a lot of frames.
Yeah.
Also, I don't like any of these characters.
True.
It is a cool looking game.
It's like a really amazing looking game.
It's got style.
Especially by the time they got to Third Strike and all that, like the stuff. Just a killer looking game. Like music, art, that thing came together. If they could do that.
Get that kind of style.
But I think, what you're saying probably is that Guilty Gear, like going more in that direction. But also, weirdly enough, I'm super into the idea of make it look hyper realistic, like Mortal Kombat models kind of do.
I'm so against that.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture just what
does Blanca look like?
Brad, you got a laptop. Pull up screenshots of Street Fighter, the movie, the game, because that's what it would look like. It would look dope.
Yeah, famously one of the greatest looking Street Fighter.
Meatloaf from Blood In, Blood Out as Ken.
I want to save that for Tekken versus Street Fighter.
Okay, fair enough. I would be way into a weird, realistic approach. But also, like, if they went that Guilty Gear-esque route of the really good-looking 3D that reads as 2D, and then went very, like, anime with it, not in terms of gameplay or or speed or anything like that, but just in terms of just like the quality of that art and the quality of those characters.
Yes, anime meaning high quality.
Well, I mean, like, okay, I mean, like, make it, if what if it looked like a fucking Miyazaki, like that level of fucking like, way too much attention to every little facet of this model. Like that is more what I mean. That'd be pretty cool.
That would.
Or just go back to 2D.
Just let Arc System.
You mean like literal actual 2D?
What if they went back to literal actual 2D?
Man.
Yeah.
Like that's
be cool.
The catch is though is like,
so expensive.
And can you do that while
like,
still trying to sell games to a modern audience? I think that's kind of the thing that, and it's a little separate from this, but the discussion around kind of what fighting games need to be and all this sort of stuff. Like you always have to filter it through. Like Capcom's not making games for the FGC; they're making games because they want to sell millions of copies of those games to a much wider audience.
And they've been getting back to doing well at that the last 2-3 years. Finally, after they've
not in fighting, but yes.
Well, but I mean, I feel like Capcom was kind of like lost in the woods for a few years, and then Monster Hunter happened and the RE2 remake, and like they're kind of doing it again.
Jeff, the answer is obvious, and we answered this during this week's ranking of fighters. You have a 2D or 3D toggle.
That's right.
You can swap between.
Do you want to be able to sidestep? Yes or no?
How do you guys feel about their model, the pricing model, like the season passes and $10 for like stage and a costume? And
I don't like it. The stage and costume prices I think are way out of control.
Same.
And because that stuff is so ancillary, it's like stuff that I want, but not at the prices they're charging.
Absolutely.
Like no way.
And then they were trying
to actively kept me away from playing Street Fighter 5.
They were out there at the beginning talking about how you could get anything in the game with fight money, but the amount you have to play to earn
maybe one thing, maybe
one character or one stage.
Exactly. Like that's a free to play level of grinding for a game that came out at $60. It's not,
and then was broken at launch.
All that stuff for sure. I think the season pass stuff for characters, I think that's a pretty well-worn territory at this point. Like the pricing, I think makes sense.
What is it, 20 for each season?
No, they were more. Well, what's the MK season pass was like 30 or 40 or wasn't it? Yeah.
It's like $8 a character came out to or something
like that. Like that doesn't seem out of control, but at the same time, I think that there's room to wiggle in terms of. Well, it depends on, like, hey, can you reach a more massive audience by having a cheaper starter edition of the game? Almost like what Fighting Layer did.
Okay.
And they kind of backdoored it into it. Yeah, like you could have like, and this is how Dead or Alive kind of ended up in a backwards way of just like, hey, can you charge $60? Like if I go in there and pay you a full game's price worth of money, then give me the full game's price worth of stuff, but also there's an addition like the DOA Core Fighters that is just straight up free that maybe you backdoor into it that way. And I think the transition path of going from Core Fighters to full, if you went their piecemeal route, the money doesn't work out in a way that makes sense anymore. But something that is a hybrid of that, but have the money actually work.
I could see that.
Yeah, I think that's you need to be able to get people in there playing it. Also, people that are not going to be great at these games always need more people to play against that are at their skill level. And when you make those games free to play or hyper easy for people to try, you're kind of making it more likely that people are going to be onboarding all the time.
Yeah.
And so you've always got fresh meat, more or less, and that's, I think the problem with long-term fighting games is like if I go play Street Fighter 5 right now, it's people that the only people playing that game online anymore are people that have been playing it for a very long time, much longer than I have. The likelihood of me having like a good outcome, not necessarily winning or losing, but having fun is significantly reduced from where it was at the launch of Street Fighter 5.
Totally. I mean, granted, there have been sales where they're practically giving that base game away.
Yeah,
they've had lots of free weekends.
And I bet that those are like really good times to play it because you do get that influx of kind of new blood.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're making that game free and then throwing some deals on it on top of that, you've kind of dropped that barrier even further. And I think that can only help with the game's kind of long-term health as an online game.
I will say anecdotally, a really good time to get into a fighting game if you have never done it is right after EVO when everyone gets really hyped to like after watching it, and they're like, "Oh man, I want to go re-download this game," and then they get like that first week is so many people. I bet there's always a huge spike of up, and then immediately, oh right, I'm bad at fighting games down.
Yeah, probably.
That's me. That's my arc.
I wonder what Capcom will do with fighting games next. Like what their next move is. If it and when they do it, will it be the same faces doing it, or will there be new people? Yeah,
division.
Yeah, the Street Fighter League.
Yeah. So that's almost external, right? That almost sounds like hey, we are washing our hands of this and now outsourcing it to an external team. We still care very much about it, but not internally.
But I think they moved some people. I remember they put some key people in place from Capcom to like oversee it at least or something.
Yeah. Like they have someone in charge of esports.
Of course.
There,
yeah. Right? But like, I'm thinking about it more in terms of like future development of fighting games. Right. Are we going to see Ono back out there, or is it time for... Yeah. Like it's time. It's probably time for fresh blood at Capcom when it comes to creating fighting games and making some of these decisions. It's maybe been time for that for a while, right? So
I think you might be right.
So I'm curious, like, because that's the thing.
Somewhere laughing maniacally right now.
If they come back out and have another game, and it's the same crew, same pitch, like
same art style,
same, like what type of credibility is that announcement going to have?
Right
at this point. So,
there's loot boxes now. We're just getting into these things. They're great.
We've heard they're awesome.
Everyone's talking about them.
You guys love to be surprised, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder.
That's their new mechanic. Is the surprise one.